Hello and welcome all. You're watching Football Daddy. I am Ankit Agarwal, and as usual, I am joined by my good friend and co-host for all of the videos here at Football Daddy, Sakshi Maria. But today, we also have a very special guest with us. We have Shoham Biswas, great friend of mine, and also someone who has been watching football quite a number of years, and a Chelsea diehard fan, and also he plays FPL pretty seriously. So it'll be interesting to see his opinions on our FPL picks. Thank you so much, Shoham, for joining us. So, without any further ado, let's kick right with our Game Week 6 preview and also for our FPL picks. So, as you can see on the screen, we have the Game Week 6 fixtures. We also have the hot topics that we will be discussing today. So, before we start talking about the Game Week 6 preview, let's talk quickly about some of the matches for Game Week 5. Starting quickly with, I think, Everton versus Liverpool, a hotly anticipated Merseyside derby, which ended in a 2-2 draw. Liverpool contestingly should have probably won a very controversial VAR decision by the referee. Saksham, what do you think?
I think Liverpool should have won the match because in the 11th minute when Pickford did the challenge on Van Dijk, that probably would have been a red card. And with the 11-man advantage that Liverpool had, they could have done it. But props to Everton, they did pretty well. This stuck with high pressure game, and to break Liverpool's defense, that's quite something. So I think they did a good job. So 1 point from Liverpool is a really big deal in the Premier League.
Shoham, what do you think? Do you think that last minute, I think Mane was adjourned, Henderson or Mane was adjourned offside? Do you think that was a decision by the VAR?
I think, look, what happens like when they try to do the VAR for the offside, okay, the check are done very minorly. But the problem is currently the offside rule is not such a standard rule or such a cemented rule that we can implement it day to day in a very confident way. So what happened whenever a VAR referee gives a decision on the basis of offside, no one can challenge it. Like even after in post-match interview, you can see that Klopp is saying that it may have been offside, it may not have been offside. It is not my decision to say. It should not have been an offside. Okay, but currently the rules are changing. So I do not know like how I can challenge the decision of the VAR referee.
Makes sense. Makes sense. That is the way the decision has been made. We cannot go back on it, so there's no point dwelling too much. But probably a little hard done by for Liverpool, but as a United fan, I don't complain. Next up, the next big match that we had for Arsenal versus Manchester City. Manchester City won 1-0. Quite strange tactics by Villa playing Kyle Walker in the centre back and Joao Cancelo probably playing as a right back, but mostly in the midfield area. A tactical probably masterclass. He won 1-0.
Going against Manchester City, the only thing that we sort of lacked was the player quality individually. As a team, we did really well. We were playing under a lot of pressure, like that's how Manchester City plays, right? But still, to absorb that pressure and still go with the counter attack, that's quite something. I was a bit disappointed with the squad selection that Arteta did. Partey was not playing. That was sad. And I think had Partey come on the field since the beginning, we could have seen a 4-3-3 formation because we have such a good. Partey is such a good, strong central midfielder. So yeah, quite a bit disappointing. I was expecting a draw from my side, but
3-3 draw for Chelsea. Shoham, your thoughts on the Chelsea game?
The fact that the keeper was playing in the back is always scary for defenders that the keeper in front of goal post. It may have given a clean sheet against Cristiano Ronaldo in the national just before that. Okay, if you have seen the international match, it was too slow for both the side standard. But in EPL, they are contesting at high level. Okay. So when you are going to up the tempo, you cannot be complacent as he generally.
I think just because you mentioned Kepa, I'll come in with a slightly controversial opinion here that I don't think it's only because of Kepa that Chelsea is conceding so many goals. I think the Chelsea's midfield is getting very easily run over by the opposition. Havertz is not defending. The side does not look like they're defending as a unit. Do you have any opinions on that?
I am totally blaming Lampard for this. Okay.
yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, Chelsea are playing either Jorginho Kante or Kovacic Kante. Kovacic Jorginho in this pair in the holding midfield. Okay. So when you are building such an attacking team with so much of attacking talent in the front, okay, what do you have to do? You have to keep the holding midfielders in their position only, and keep them from moving too much forward. But the problem is Jorginho easily gives away ball, and what happens? He is not a fast enough to track back. Piliqueta is a very experienced defender. So what should he do? What should he do? That he has already played Reece James in a defensive holding midfield position in the last past season. So what should he do? He should train Reece James for that position, so that in spite of not playing Jorginho, Reece James and Kante can provide that midfield balance and that pass that we have seen Reece James provide the assist from the wing. So he can provide that pass with the Kante, and then I can see the Chelsea defense getting much stronger.
So I was talking to this one friend of mine on Instagram, Deepraj Mukherjee, who is also a close follower of the channel. He's also a Chelsea fan, and he made a very valid point about Chelsea that Lampard does not know how to use Kante. He has been looking to play on more on the left-hand side rather than centrally, which I personally think is his best position. So, it will be interesting to see how he adapts to Kante. We'll talk more about it when we talk about Manchester United versus Chelsea game. Some other results from the game week 5. Leeds lost 1-0 to Wolves. I do think Wolves deserve to win. They were really good in the second half. They performed whatever they needed to on the field. Very good game. Brighton drew 1-1 to Crystal Palace. A pretty hard done by for Brighton. They should have won that game. A very soft penalty to concede at the end. That was the only shot that they considered in that game, and that was a penalty. Spurs again drew 3-3. What a brilliant game by West Ham. That last Lanzini goal. Did you guys see that goal by Lanzini?
Yeah.
That could already be the goal of the season, right?
Yeah, at least goal of the month.
So quickly moving ahead with our discussion, we have the biggest match for the week today. We're talking about Manchester United versus Chelsea. The discussion that we are going to do is both Lampard and Ole are in the second season of managing their clubs. Both are under quite a lot of pressure, I would say. At least for Ole, I would say he's under quite a lot of pressure. Lampard is also under quite a lot of pressure because he has just spent over £200 million in the transfer market. He's expected to perform. He has brought in a lot of good players, and he has quite not been able to produce the standards that we expect Chelsea to. So we are asking the question, who is going to get the boot? Because I do think that whoever loses this is going to come under scrutiny from their fans. So, before Shoham and I take this question, Saksham, from a third-party perspective, what do you think? Lampard versus Ole, how do you see this game?
So just like Soham said, that Chelsea has such a good attacking squad but lacks in the defense, and that kind of reminds me of the Arsenal squad during Wenger era towards his end, because we did have good attacking players, but when you look at the defenders, we had Mustafi, for God's sake. If you know as a manager that you have your own weaknesses, you should hire an assistant manager who can look after your defense, right? That could work. Manu, on the other hand, lacks a bit on the defense. It has a good attacking side, but when it comes to defense, I mean, if Wan-Bissaka plays like he did in the Champions League, well and good, but that's unlikely to happen. Dea has been finding some form, so let's see. This could be a good game. 3-2 to Chelsea, 3-1 to Chelsea. 3-1 to Chelsea.
Mm-hmm. I think that is quite a harsh result to pick for United. Shoham, your opinions. We also have this stats to show you. This is head-to-head Manchester United versus Chelsea. They have played 56 games. United have won 17. Chelsea have won 18. They have drawn 21 times. Statistically, it's more likely that they will draw. And I personally think that it will be a draw. So, Shoham, your opinions on the game?
Personally, I also think that it should be played to a draw. From the last match we have seen both by Manchester United and Chelsea, Manchester United created the perfect tactics to play against PSG, okay, like the holding play, like the defensive play. If you have seen the match with Sevilla, both of the teams were playing defensively completely. For the next match, I think what he will try to do, he will also try to play defensive and take on Manchester United on the counter attack. So mostly this should be Lampard's tactics. But and Kovacic is field, so he gives the pace element over Jorginho over the player. But the problem is, if we compare defense of the current season, in the 4 matches Manchester United has played, Manchester United have considered 12 goals, and Chelsea have played 5 matches and Chelsea have considered only 9 goals. So there is a 3 goals we shouldn't judge too harsh on Manchester United, but it should be a 19-20 match. 2-2. 2-2 is my prediction.
Okay. Okay. So I also think that it is going to play to a draw personally, because both the sides have equal strength, equal defensive weaknesses right now. Apart from that, I think United have played extremely well against Newcastle. It was more because of the opposition that we did so good. Against PSG, they again had a lot of problems in their back. They were not defending properly. That is why they allowed a lot of space for Rashford and Martial to run behind them. So I'm going to be very honest. I don't think United are an elaborately changed squad. This is the same side that got defeated to Tottenham 6-1. So I am not hoping for too much, but I do think a draw would be a good result for United. Moving ahead with our next point, has the Leeds bubble burst? So Leeds lost 1-0 to Wolves, and it's not just a loss against Wolves that is leading us to talk about it. But I think in the game against Wolves, we saw that Nuno brought up a very good strategy of frustrating the players of Leeds. They did not have as many chances as you would expect Leeds to have. They were not as attacking. The midfield was completely lost in the game. I think it's the two fullbacks, Ayling and Dallas, who are playing better for Leeds. So Saksham, what is your opinion for Leeds?
When Leeds entered the season, we had quite good hope from them, but slowly it has been sort of evaporating. So that's usually the case with teams coming into the Premier League from second tier. So not every team can perform as well as Leicester. Leicester is still in the top 5 teams, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, let's see. Leeds does have a very good manager that can come into play if he plays his cards right. So let's see.
Till now in the season, Leeds have produced the most number of tackles combined. They have done 121 tackles, with 80 of their tackles won, and they have had the most number of attacks in the defense third and the mid third. They've also considered the most number of shots against, and for a team that is considered the most number of shots, but they've only allowed 9 big chances for any opposition to create against them. That is the same as Brighton, who on the other hand has considered the least number of shots in the Premier League so far in this season. So pretty impressive stats by both Leeds and Brighton. We'll be talking more about defense in a little while. So moving ahead from Leeds, will the City's defenders please stand up? I basically wanted to ask both of you regarding this. What is Pep doing with his defense? Shoham, your opinions on this?
I think Guardiola is kind of in a confused mode. So what is the best formation that he should play in the defense for the Manchester City right now? He can't fathom, he can't imagine, and he cannot understand like which should be the best suited for it. Like if you have seen the Arsenal match, you are saying correctly that Kyle Walker was playing in the center. But in between the match, when you see that Auba trying to get from the left or trying to pass from the left, you have seen that Kyle Walker going to the challenge to the left to challenge Aubameyang, and the other defenders moving to the center. Like the point is, when you are trying to match pace with pace, okay, play Kyle Walker in the wing only. But when Guardiola thinks that if someone gives a long ball and the central defenders will be overrun by the attackers, like someone like Sadio Mane, if Sadio Mane is playing against a City defender and someone gives a long ball and he just goes past the defenders and completely obliterates the defense, so he's thinking that then I should play Kyle Walker in the center. This kind of judgment and this kind of complexity is totally confusing Guardiola.
I think you used a good term, complexity, because I personally thought that it was a battle of wits between Arteta and Guardiola in the game between City and Arsenal, and I think that Guardiola kind of overthought everything, and it just looked a little bit hodgepodge. In the City looked quite a bit of hodgepodge in the entire game. Saksham, you saw the game. What is your view?
So again, I think before going to the game, Guardiola knew that Arteta knew his tactics in and out. So he was kind of doing something new with the players. That's, I think, what led to the complexity. So when our player Saka was going for the forward runs, you could see that Laporte was not able to keep up with the pace. So Kyle Walker had to step in, right? And that's what you mentioned. So yeah, I think Kyle Walker is probably the best defender City has right now. So I think it was addressed in the dressing room that Kyle Walker should do the man marking role and to stop players from making that cut inside runs, right?
We discussed on that game, like when the team sheets had just come out, we were discussing the Arsenal team sheet. It was pretty strange not to see Lacazette. We saw Aubameyang was playing with Willian and Nicolas Pepe on either side. So, do you think Arteta got it right with the squad selection that day?
No, again, I'm quite disappointed with the squad selection that Arteta did. Lacazette was probably dropped because he played in the Europa League game, and that was kind of foreseeable from that match. But again, the only disappointing thing that I saw was that Partey is already a well-established defender in Europe, so he could have played a bit risky again. But then you are going against City, probably the strongest squad in the Premier League right now. So taking a risk could not have hurt you that much, right? At worst, you could have lost.
I mean,
3
you're absolutely right in Partey because Partey had already started the season for Atletico Madrid. He has played a few matches in the La Liga, so he's match fit. He could have easily come into the team and sit in that central defensive midfield role, and he would have improved the Arsenal side.
Arteta does not play with a very simple like pass to Aubameyang and score a goal tactic. He wants his player to know what he's going to do with them. He wants them to understand their roles. So maybe that could have come into his decision-making, team selection decisions, that he sort of dropped Partey and let him come the second half of the game.
Thank God Arteta is not Thomas Tuchel, because for Thomas Tuchel, it's only about pass the ball to Neymar and Mbappe and let's see what they do. Moving ahead with our next point, we are talking about Liverpool's shaky title defense. I mean, it's quite a pun there because Virgil van Dijk is out injured for a long term, probably the entire season. He has sustained an ACL injury. So talking about the defense, even Matip is probably injured. I'm not sure. So we're going to see Gomez and Fabinho at least for the considerable future right now, with Alexander-Arnold and Robertson on either side. I personally also have Robertson on my FPL side, and a lot of people I know also have Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, both of them in their Premier League side, FPL sides. So just to talk about, so Liverpool is a kind of a side that depends a lot on the fullbacks to move forward and put in those crosses into the box, so that a Firmino and a Mane can attack on the ball. But they do that because Liverpool plays a very high line, and Virgil van Dijk was probably defending 2/3 of the entire defensive back in the Liverpool setup. With Van Dijk out, I don't see any defender on his role right now. Gomez, Fabinho, good defenders, but can they fill in the shoes for Van Dijk? I am not quite sure. So that personally for me can also mean that Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold will be playing a more defensive role. They'll be more, a little bit susceptible to going forward. Also, just one more thing that before I ask both of your opinion. I also think that this is the first time that Liverpool has sustained a major injury to one of their most important players in the last 2 seasons. Jurgen Klopp has had a season full of fit players. This is the first time he's hit with an injury. So it will also be interesting to see, at least from my point of view, how he copes up to this sudden change in the tactics. So, Saksham, what do you think?
I think it was a bit harsh that Van Dijk, he was kicked out because of a really, really clumsy tackle from Pickford. It should have been a red card, and yes, that red card could have resulted in with Liverpool winning the game. But on the longer term, if you look at Liverpool's defense, it could be a possibility that Robertson and Alexander-Arnold are asked by Jurgen Klopp not to make those forward runs. But the kind of adventurous coach Klopp is, I don't think he'll sort of hesitate, knowing the quality of players he has on field, that he'll ask them to sort of fall back and defend. I think the entire Liverpool defends as a squad, so I don't see a major shift happening in the tactics. So there could be adjustments, but no, nothing major.
Shom, your thoughts on this?
I think what Klopp is gonna do, like he will ask either Robertson or Arnold to make the run. What he will do, like in the center, okay, I think he will try to play Navigator. Okay, so what happens when one of the Trent or Robertson tries to make a run? He will try to move Keita to the defense. So what he will try to do? He will try to pass it to the Thiago, and then he will try to play the long ball to either of three of them. As we know, the front two plays in a fast style. Like whoever gets the ball makes the run and passes to the other players and score the goal. So what he will try to do, he will play the navigator in a very central deep defense, and he will ask either Trent or either Robertson to make the run. So that when it happens, navigator and Thiago can play the part and make connection between the one.
So Liverpool plays Sheffield United this week, so an easy fixture, I think. But it will be interesting to see how Jurgen Klopp adopts this game to the sudden changes in the squad. I think the next question, Saksham, you would like to take on is Arteta's philosophy sustainable? Arteta was kind of on a golden run with the top six teams, beating Liverpool twice. Right now, he is not enjoying as good a form. He was beaten against City last season and this season as well. Arsenal's poor run against City continues. So, do you think is Arteta's philosophy a long-term sustainable option for Arsenal?
It's important that players don't get frustrated under Arteta's philosophy, because it's not the most flamboyant and exciting sort of philosophy and mindset to go on field with. He does play a bit sort of solid at defense, and he's not that adventurous as Wenger was in the forwards. So, as a goal scoring player like Aubameyang, it might get a frustrating that instead of playing in the center, he's being asked to play in the wing. But again, if you are getting the results, what's there to lose, right? If you have the Premier League title in your hand, I mean, let's pray to God that happens. No, I think we are doing good. We have sort of come back to our record as probably the strongest, one of the strongest squad in the Premier League. So let's see. I think we are doing good. Yes, we are not getting big results, but that can change over time as we have bought in some really quality players.
Okay, so that's for the big games of the week. We have some other exciting games for the game week 6 as well. Of course, Everton plays Southampton. Southampton scored 3 goals against Chelsea. Can they do it against Everton? That's one thing that we would like to see. Even Manchester City and West Ham, that's a really nice game. West Ham produced a great comeback against Tottenham Hotspur. Again, Brighton versus West Brom. Brighton would be feeling hard done by in the last week, so they'll also be probably going forward and looking for a victory against West Bromwich, who have honestly not been looking pretty sharp and totally out of their waters in the Premier League so far. So we are going to quickly move ahead with our FPL discussion now. So we are going to be talking a lot about defenders this week because number one, Virgil van Dijk has been ruled out for a long-term injury. That means also going to take some hit on the Liverpool's defense. People are a little bit concerned by the defensive qualities of the Premier League teams because on average till now 3.8 goals have been scored in the Premier League. A lot of it also has to do with the number of penalties that was given prior to the last week, but somewhere we also have to just look at how defensively we can strengthen our FPL squads to get the best players in. So on your screen you can see the top defenders as per points that they have garnered in the FPL so far. So Shoham, tell us something about how we should how we should be addressing our defense issues for the Premier FPL this season.
The problem is that we shouldn't expect too much from the defenders. As the earlier scorelines have shown us, like getting a clean sheet for the defenders will be too tough unless it is a match between two evenly matched teams, but on the lower side, like on the not on the top half of the table. If you are seeing a match in the top half of the table between two teams, you will expect a goal in the both side most probably. Okay. So my advice will be try to spend less on the defenders, okay, but play smart. Like another, I can see in the list that they have not been Justin very cheap, and mostly
Justin, by the way.
Yeah, and mostly you can expect that Leicester giving a strong defense mostly because out of the currently big six, only Arsenal have considered 6 goals, the least. Because of the Arteta's philosophy, as you have said, but I can say that Leicester also sometimes give a strong defense and score. But Liverpool is getting overrun by goals. Like they have scored 13 goals, but they have also conceded 13 goals. Currently, their goal
Yeah, yeah.
difference is 0. So
Yeah, they
I
have actually considered the highest number of. They have considered the highest number of goals so far, along with West Bromwich Albion. Both of them have conceded 13 goals so far in the season.
yeah, so spending 7 and 6.5 in a defender from Liverpool, I don't think it's a suitable choice. But
But
still,
even not on Robertson
but
or
he-
like one
yeah,
of
yeah,
Robertson and Trent Alexander.
I will be choosing Robertson because Robertson is producing much more crosses than Trent Alexander.
I don't think Liverpool has gone from a championship defense to a relegation defense. They have gone down in quality, but they're still a good defense to bet on. Saksham, what do you think? You have actually got very good defenders in your squad. So I will just quickly go to your squad here. You have got Cresswell, Pistani, and Konsa, three extremely good performing defenders for the season so far. So, what is your thought process on the defenders?
So again, like I said last week, that I'm not a fan of spending big on the defenders. Go for the underdogs. Go for like Cresswell. I think he got 7 or 8 points from FPL last week. So these defenders will give you so much value, and it's quite harsh on defenders when it comes to football, because once you concede a goal, you've already lost so many points. So there's that. But I'd say just spend more on forwards and midfielders, because they are more likely to score goals and create chances. When it comes to defenders, go for the ones that have the differential factor in them, like Cresswell did last week. This week I'm not so sure, because he will be picked by many managers. So don't spend much. Go for the form factor in the FPL league. Just search for form and pick the best ones which give you the best value.
So if we just quickly go back to the points that defenders have scored, it'll be, I think something interesting to see is only Robertson is on the list, and they were really good threats from the corners. Trent Alexander-Arnold watching some great crosses, and Van Dijk hitting them with with a surety. He's a great header of the ball. So tactics needs to be changed, as Saksham also discussed. But I think you made a good point that there's no point going big on defenders. But I'd still probably stick with, as you can see on your screen, this is my team. I would still certainly go with Robertson. He is a too good an option to let go right now for me. So Shoham, I will take your opinion on this, because this is something that you were telling me before last week's Premier FPL, that Timo Werner is going to score. I had shipped Timo Werner out right that week. I probably should have stuck with him, but I shipped him out, and he did score 2 goals. So Kane versus other strikers. Right now, Premier League has so many great strikers right now. Calvert-Lewin, Kane, Bamford is a sub 6.5 great option. So tell us your thought. How do you decide whether you want Kane, who is owned by like 80% of all their managers, or do you spread the money across other teams?
Personally, I would like to go for spending the money on the other teams, because Kane has a very high value, and the second is Kane has a very awkward habit of switching off suddenly. He will not chase after the ball. So if you try to spend 10 or 11 points on the tackle like Kane, so instead you can buy Bamford or Danny Ings by going to other defenders. Like even if they are not scoring in and out in every week, so most of the week they are giving us goals.
So that's an interesting point. Saksham, what is your opinion on Timo Werner? Do you think we should have him? We should ship him out? What do you think?
When we started the FPL season, I did pick him as my forward, but he did not score for the first 3 games. I mean, right? So I sort of fell back on that. And again, yes, we have. I mean, if we had to choose between Werner and Calvert-Lewin, everyone in the same mind would choose Calvert-Lewin. So Werner, maybe as he develops as a player under Lampard, we could see a better form from him. But right now, he might not be the best option, especially when Kane, Son, Mane, Salah, they're all scoring so many goals. So rather spend less on the second striker you have on your team, and spend more on the midfielder like Mane or Salah, who will score at every 1 in 2 games.
For a sub 6.5 option, I think Bamford gives a great value. So if you want someone, Patrick Bamford is a very good option. Captain picks, quickly, if both of you could tell us that who do you have as captain in your squad? We can go to Saksham's team. We can see Saksham has Aubameyang as captain. Saksham, tell us.
Yeah, I think I would have gone with Calvert-Lewin as the captain, but because of the emotions I have for Arsenal and Aubameyang, that's why I picked him as captain. So yeah, Calvert-Lewin
Okay.
should be the same choice here.
Okay, so we'll go to Shoham's team right now. So this is Shoham's team on your screen. He has picked Heung-min Son as captain, whom coincidentally I also picked as my captain. Shoham, your thoughts?
Son is in excellent form, okay, and plus he has the pace which we need from a striker, okay, and he's also playing in a striker role, even though he's given as a midfield, but he's playing as a central striker role. So and we can expect Burnley to defend a lot. Burnley generally plays in a very defensive mode, but still we will expect Son to score 1 or 2 goals in the match easily.
So as I said, I also got Heung-min Son as my captain, and I've also chosen Harry Kane as my vice captain. Hopefully, mostly because as Shoham already described that I was going for the fixture that Tottenham has against Burnley. I think they're going to score some goals. Apart from that, Saksham, as we usually do, who do you think will surprise us this week? One player that you think can surprise us?
I think we all saw that coming when the signing happened. When we heard the news that Bale was signed into the team, he could score, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 goals next game week. We'll see. But I think Bale would be the better performing player if we had to choose between Kane and Son, because he will have that sort of frustration that he has sort of built up from Real Madrid, and he has a good manager. So let's see, Bale can be the one who sort of tears apart the defense of Burnley.
Shoham, your pick?
I think last 2 matches Costa has not performed in the midfield as well for the Leeds, but I think this week Costa will perform.
I would personally. So if I have two options here. So if Alex Telles plays for United, I saw him playing against PSG last night. He was wonderful. He was whipping in crosses from the left hand side and producing some decent chances for the strikers in the box. So if Alex Telles plays, he will be a surprise pick. If he does not, then I think Semedo will again be a very good pick. He did not get so many points last week, but he is going forward and he has such brilliant pace. So Semedo is someone to look forward to. So that's it, guys. That was our pick for FPL and our discussions for Game Week 6 preview. Let us know what do you think, which matches are you excited about, and tell us your questions about FPL. And if you think, and if you have been following FPL tips, how have you been faring? If you have some comments for us, please leave them in the comment section below. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is Football Daddy. We're gonna catch you in the next one. Bye bye.